Caution. Conden's hot. You got to give me all you got. Caution. Conden's hot.
You got to give me all you got. Caution, content's hot. You got to give me all you got.
You can't beat that! It's a triple! Make it a quadra! Make it a pentakill for Z-Tan! Can he defend it? He's got a double kill! The power got it! And that's it! That is it! Dark Omen, get it! Eyes on the Titan! Zoinks in the Titan room! Aegis on the Searing Pain! And he gets it! Capri ultimate! And it was the Morgan! And now the real Capri pulls through!
Me all you got.
He just rode the fire charge! He grinded! He grinded! No, he real grinded!
First time we've seen all game. Turning around, he's straight.
Oh no, my God! The turnaround! He's crazy! Huge stun! Oh my God! The double Thor! Into the double! Tactical faders was an underdog all season long, but now they can call themselves Smite Draft League champions! As they're finding out that the big, bad, remarkable wolf, their house was made of straw, blowing it wide open. They will take it, Sunbreakers in 4. At the start of the season, the sun rose to the sky, and in all 3 divisions, it's been broken. Dark Omen is on death's door. Can they make the play happen? Radvilk has a double. Will anyone do it? No! No one will stop the Sunbreakers! The league has been shattered! It's in darkness! It's Sunbreakers dominance! And they take the Godlike finals!
Caution. Conden's hot.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Smite Draft League Season 3 Upper Divisions Playoff Panel. We're here to speculate which teams will be great and which will deflate as we wait for playoffs to initiate. Joining me are the veteran casters clique here. We got Fenix in the house, KingFsher in the house, and AnthonyMalum in the house. Thanks for being here, guys. How are we all feeling? A lot of thumbs up. All right, you can tell, man, they're really stoked. Anyway,
raring with excitement.
Very much so.
Let's get right on into it. We're going to start off here with some Immortal. We'll work our way up. I'm sure everyone's familiar with the fact, but nonetheless, establish the exposition here. Set the scene. Playoffs this season will include all 8 teams, meaning 8th seed team will have to go toe-to-toe with the top of the leaderboard. Normally, one might consider that a bit of a freebie, but the 8th seed in this division, Immortal, flourish. It's made up of some undeniably talented players. Rushology, Pee-wee made a splash in their SDL Scouting Ground debuts, and the rest of the team boasts some known veteran threats as well. What do you guys think is the game plan and mentality of Flourish when stepping up to the dominant force of Pua and Wild Inferno?
I can take it first and then I'll pass it off to someone. But I think that Flourish, looking at them in the beginning of the season, were a prospect that could have won the entirety of Immortal. As the season has gone on, though, they just have not been matching up as well as they should have. We've had a lot of drama happen on that team, including a very public call that was had where some fighting was going on, basically. That was not that long ago at this point, but some fighting, in-team fighting was going on, but I think they got better from it. I'm in their Discord where they're kind of having their own little separate chats every now and then, and it seems as if though they've kind of grown together after the fact of some of these hiccups that have happened throughout the season. So I expect them to come to the Wild Inferno game, the Seed 1 game, and bring their best, and their best is competitive, and so they could easily bring Power down a couple of notches, and that entire team, including Aztec, Skizzy, everyone on the Wild Inferno team. I expect Wild Inferno and Flourish to be actually a pretty good matchup.
I think kind of along the lines of what Fenix was saying, it's going to be a competitive match for sure, and we kind of see this a lot, really and everywhere, not just Smite specific, but if you're a high-ranked team and whatever, if it's video games, if it's real sports, going up against a low-ranked team, sometimes, people can get complacent. They might not prepare all the way, so Wild Inferno can't really fall victims to the trap. They need to be ready for that Flourish team. Like Phoenix said, they've had a few issues, but at its core, it's a lot of good players, and it's players that have already seen success in this league. So it's definitely not just going to be a one-sided affair, I think.
Yeah, Wild Inferno might be preparing to smoke that Flourish pack, but they might get burned themselves, so be careful there. You might get caught lacking. Anthony, I have a little follow-up for you, piggybacking piggybacking off of that question, do you think it's better as that lower seeded team from Flourish's perspective to face up against the top contenders early on for the best of 3? Or is it better maybe as the final showdown best of 5? I can see benefits and deficits for both sides of that coin. What are your thoughts on that?
Historically speaking, I would say that the lower seeds have done oddly well in SDL. A big part of that is in previous seasons, a lot of teams have had a lot of changes towards the end of the season. And thankfully, that was not as big of a thing this season. But what that led to was an actual growth in, like what Fenix and KingFsher were talking about, group cohesion and working together. So I think, honestly, for a team like Flourish that had such a weird season and kind of is figuring themselves out, they've gotten along better, which really does matter because a team like Wild Inferno, we know that they have really good comms, and we've seen them play very clean, objective to objective, and then they get crazy when they know they can get crazy. So I think that, to answer your question, it is best to face those upper seeds early to try to kind of catch them off guard. Let's say if you get yourself a quick 1 victory, right? All of a sudden in that one game, you're kind of sitting in a much better position than you might be had you come in and you lost, or maybe there was an advantage, or so many different things. In the best of 5, you lose that one game, you're demoralized, you lose that second game, you already feel like you're out. It's, being an 8th seed and coming back against a 1 seed in a best of 5 would not feel possible. So I think the potential's there, and I think, like I said, the cohesion will matter a lot.
The novelty factor is certainly an important one, so I do find myself agreeing with you that you've got a chance to maybe catch them slipping a little bit if you catch that first seed off early. So hopefully Flourish not going to underestimate the opportunity they have. Hopefully they haven't written themselves off. Honestly, though, knowing those players, I'm sure they're coming at this with confidence despite their placement. They're not going to let that stop them. Seeding, nothing but a number. All right, carrying right along, let's take a look into some of the other teams here. Dark Omen and Stormcallers. They're teams that I personally, and I'm sure you guys would agree, have greatly enjoyed watching develop across the season because both, they have great players on their rosters, but also the foundation of their structures is kind of the bonds between the players that existed even before Season 3 began. Upon rising to captainhood, Thawkman Jones instantly picked up Season 2 Brother-in-Arms physics and scooped Trap Bunny up with the quickness as well. And from day one, Cosmic Vibes had his sights set on players that he knew were good, but that he also knew had an intrinsic love for the game and that he could have fun playing it with. What do you guys think
Cosmic
you
Vibes.
gain when you put synergy as your first priority? And is it worth the sacrifices you make when you could be expanding your web a bit more? I'm going to start here with KingFsher.
I think it kind of depends on how much you kind of choose to sacrifice gameplay ability when you go for chemistry. But in both these cases, I mean, they're good teams. We've seen a lot of these players in the league before. I think especially on that Stormcallers team, everybody except for Printers has played in the league before and found some pretty good success. And I think chemistry is always just going to be a little bit more important because we see it time and time again. Every year, there's one team that everybody thinks is going to do really, really good, and they fall apart like week 2 because they don't know how to talk or they're not doing the right things in game. So I think for that reason, knowing your team's going to get along, knowing they're going to do what you want them to, is, I think, better in some cases because you can always teach people Smite, but you can't always kind of teach people to get along. I think that's a lot harder to do.
What a banger of a line right there.
I was thinking the same
That was a
exact
bar.
thing.
That went so
Now
hard
King-
right there, KingFsher.
KingFsher's got it. It's a very valid point, though. Synergy, it's something that is absolutely necessary part of the entire equation. You got to be able to, execute on the field, but you also got to be having a little mind meld going on there. So hopefully they're going to put it to great effect, though, because I know those players, they have fun in the chats, they have fun on the field, and sometimes that can be all you need. At its core, Smite is a game, and this game is here to have fun, and when you're doing that, you can never lose, even if you do lose. So hopefully they're going to be, at the very least, if they do go down, they go down with style, and if they go up, hey, more power to them for making sure that they prioritized friendship above all. I respect it.
And Deelo, I was going to interrupt you, just say it real quick, but it is true that Immortal is made up of a lot of our very fundamental level players, and they represent the SDL, and players usually do. I'm not going to say they represent the entirety of SDL or anything like that, but they have been around the SDL since season 1, even season 0. Some of them, some of our first games ever played that Anthony and KingFsher were both casted, and we've been around for about a year now. And me and Deelo have been around for about 6 months, but there are names across the entirety of Immortal, and Dark Omen and Stormcallers are no short of, we talked about it, Cosmic Vibes, and that also goes for Dark Omen with Thoughtman Jones, who are both just, they've made Immortal so much fun this season. And so you have to root for these types of guys, and that's why I say I want Stormcallers to win, and I want Seismic Shockwaves to win. They're both really good teams, but it is hard to root against guys like Cosmic Vibes.
Absolutely. And that is actually a great springboard for my next question here, because I might be biased being one of their LCs. Fenix, you might be as well. But I think personally, Immortal might just embody fun, the best of any division here in the SDL, from my perspective at the very least. We've seen like some crazy stuff come from them. We've seen Amuzin Cobb bans. We've seen Poncho in the jungle. We've seen Thockman Jones grittying live on stream. Crazy stuff. When you're in the playoffs, I saw Anthony's eyes wide just imagining it. It was something to behold, truly. When you're in the playoffs and these stakes rise a bit, how much fun is enough fun, and how much fun is too much fun? Anthony, I'm going to start with you.
I feel like I think it's funny you asked me, because I think I am the perfect person. Because I feel like the way seasons naturally progress. I mean, let's look at Dark Omen and Sunbreakers in their matchup. Dark Omen is a team that a lot of the players on there, they've got a vendetta, and that's okay. And they want to win this championship for multiple reasons. And in week 1, especially since we've made the change where everybody makes the playoffs, in week 1, Chase, that was disgusting. That crack.
Did you guys hear that?
That was wild.
Yeah, dude, that was like extra. I wasn't gonna say nothing, but like that was like exorcist level.
Anyway,
scary.
In week
Jesus
1,
Christ.
you don't want to
Terrifying.
you don't want to go crazy like that. You don't want to. We obviously got a bit more lenient this season on rules of having more fun in games, taunting a bit more with people and so on and so forth. But week 1, you don't want to go crazy and drop all that. You kind of want to grow that as the season goes. And I'm one who I've always really strongly felt that playoffs and finals in particular, those are your times to taunt. When if you're playing Ho Yi, you get a good ricochet. You're just having a moment tonight, Fenix.
Bro, he looks like a freshly peeled tomato right now. Look at this
Fisher's
man.
dying. Phoenix is eating a lemon. I'm trying to get through this damn point.
Phoenix has like the soul of Chernobog like flooding through him right now. Someone call an exorcist. Like, this is interesting. High level.
What I'm trying to get out is there's moments in playoffs and in finals where you can hit those moments and you can taunt and you can enjoy it and you can live out those moments. We saw it with the way that Snoozes and Teddy played. Jesus Christ! I hate it here.
I'm sorry. He's having one of those moments right now, bro. He
Died. I just stopped laughing from the crack, and I look over, and he's got a whole orange slice in his mouth.
It was a lemon.
Oh, is it a lemon?
It's an orange. It's an orange.
Sorry.
It's
Okay.
a citrus. It's citrus.
It looks
it's
real,
good. Sorry,
looks
Anthony.
really yellow on your camera.
Oh my god, guys! I'm sorry. I cracked my neck. I didn't know it was gonna go
No,
through.
You can't do that.
I didn't know.
Okay. Anyway, we saw that last season with Teddy and Snoozes, who were both two very. The way that they played was outspoken. Like, what sticks in my head is watching Teddy camp between a speed buff and a wall with finals on the line to jump in and erase everyone. Plays like that are just absolutely asinine. And I think moments like that are meant for playoffs and for finals. So I think it's good to have fun. And like, just to kind of wrap up what I started at the beginning, because that was 10 years ago now, Dark Omen is a team that I am looking at in particular, who have that vendetta, who have that mindset, but who are a fun team, and I could see making those moments if they can make it far in the playoffs.
Absolutely. I think they have a good balance there. They have like that storyline, that motivation, but they're self-aware of it at the same time. And because of that, it's a bit more lighthearted. They're a bit more jovial with that kind of underdog comeback story here. So I respect the hell out of Dark Omen for that. And I also just respect their play, man. They show it. They bring it when it comes to those scraps in the set. So looking forward to seeing what they come with. Let's introduce another team into the mix. Let's talk some Seismic Shockwaves. Despite the name, do not often shake up their support pick, and for good reason. Hindu Man's Geb is literally and metaphorically that team's rock that they've built their successes upon. acknowledging how much game tape exists for that one god pick, while also keeping in mind that everyone just has been unable to counter it. Do the Shockwaves focus their game plan on honing their team's play around Geb even further? Or do you rock with some different options? Maybe widen that god pool, broaden your horizons. Fenix, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, I did like the rock with different options while talking about Geb. That was a good one. I think that Hinduman has said himself, who is the Geb player, that if you ban the Geb, that's what he wants you to do. So it makes sense. If you're going to ban the Geb, it takes away a ban that might be a Kali that would go to Syzax, or a Thor that would go to Syzax, or whatever is in the meta after this bonus patch. So you're taking away certain gods from Hinduman, but that team is made of a lot of different types of utility, including Adora, including, as I said, Syzax, Mini Delvin in the Soul Lane. A lot of really good players on Seismic Shockwaves. So even though Geb, if you can get it, looks really good on like a resume, it may not happen every single time. I expect to see possibly some pocket picks coming from Hinduman. That man's playing in 3 or 4 different leagues right now and is playing casuals all the time. So he's practicing up probably on some Kabrakins or some kind of other fun god in the meta right now.
That's what I was going to say. Like, we can't discount how deep the actual knowledge of that team runs having a player like Hinduman, because it's easy to look at it, and we should look at it at the face value of Hinduman playing in amateur leagues, but you also do kind of have to look at it as somebody who's been watching and has cast more pro games than most people in our league have watched. So, like, he's probably been in the same room as more games than the average person has watched in our league. And I think that's a big thing to consider. And to go to what Fenix said about the target banning, and that's what Hindu wants, I actually was going to say, we've had experience with that, and we've talked about that. Lucen is somebody who didn't play this season, but to go back to previous seasons, I must have said it 100,000 times before somebody else picked up on it, that Yamoja ban was a trap. It always was a trap, because Lucent had a deep god pool, and you would ban the Yamoja, which was okay because it was top meta, but you used a ban on it, and Lucent just is going to play something else and expect you to not ban it. And half the time when it was banned or wasn't banned, Lucent wouldn't play it anyway because it was just there to be a red herring. And I think Geb is turning into that for Hinduman, and I think the advantage that the Shockwaves have, which is similar to Lucent but different in how they play, is that Hindu thrives on any character that can blink initiate. And there's so many of them right now, and they're all so good. And for me, Geb is one of the not so great ones right now. So puts him in a really good spot.
Yeah. And I was actually thinking that exact same thing, the kind of deja vu there of Lucent's exact strategy too, right? It's this trap they said. You would always say it back, I believe, in the last season's desk where you said, don't do it. He'll just play Khepri.
I was screaming about it at certain points. I remember in playoff season 1, I was hitting my head on the desk on a cast with Fisher because it was banned in all 3 games of a 3-game set, or in all 3 games of a SF5, or something weird like that. And I was just losing my mind because they kept banning it, and it wasn't good in that current meta. And Lucent was just insta-locking Nox every single time anyway.
Yep. It's just a nail in your own coffin. It's something that they're going to have to watch out for. I'm glad that Hindu, in that sense, is following the legacy that Lucent has left. So thank you very much for that, Lucent, wherever you are in the sky. We appreciate you for that. But carrying right along here, final question before we get into these Immortal predictions for the bracket. Just any favorite Immortal moments come to mind across SDL Season 3. I'll give you guys a moment to reflect, but then Fisher, I'm going to start with you. Just reflect on it a little bit. What do we think's been just some top peak highlight moments here that have come from Immortal?
I mean, I think across casters, I famously have a pretty bad memory when it comes to specific games and stuff. I can never really remember like kind of cool moments, but I can reflect on something that like may have an impact with this bracket.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I don't know if it's gonna or not, but Kingslayers week 1, who were kind of like an underdog, ended up beating Eclipse. So in terms of that matchup, that's definitely something I'm gonna look back on. I don't know if either of those two teams have changed a whole ton, but it's been a long time. So that for me is going to be pretty interesting. Sorry, it's not like more of a fun fact, but yeah, my memory is just
the Kingslayers
cooked.
have been a sneaky team the entire season too, realistically speaking.
Yeah, some strong players there.
Yeah, I mean,
there's
how many times have we all said you can't count out Zarxith, and Tatri is quite literally. Tatri is a defending champion here, And Tatri is somebody who constantly makes it to championships in not one other league, but 2 other leagues. So a 3-league returning finalist in different roles on ping.
Mm-hmm.
You can't discount that team.
I think it's also important to note Tatri has one of the best profile pictures in the Discord.
I'm a huge fan of that profile picture. It is
The
true.
orangutan is iconic.
Tatri, just to let you know, we really appreciate you for that, buddy. Hope you go to the finals just off the back of that, honestly.
Yeah, you can't discount Koala Mang either. That's another great profile picture. I love Koala Mang. I think I already said it, that Immortal is one of my favorite divisions of this. We're very biased as the Immortal LCs. I'm an LC of every division, but I've already told them all that it's been a blessing to basically be a part of what they have created this season. And Koala Mang and Tatri and all of them have been the best part of that. Am I okay to answer my favorite part of the season for Immortal? I think my favorite part of the season was when I think Jeff interviewed Poncho, Alex, who is the mid laner.
Oh, that was a good one.
Yeah, and Poncho trash
Don't
talks.
forget Alec too.
And then Alec.
But go ahead, Poncho.
Cosmic Vibes in the draft portion when I was we were doing the draft of Immortal, had his hands like this in the prism formation. It was pretty cool. With his camera on, full suit. Poncho's trash talking towards every other team was a wild thing to see at like week 2 into the season. So I think Immortal has been a lot of respectful trash talking, which I have really enjoyed, because all these guys will go into a different Discord and all hang out and just play games together after literally being in this chat, just trash talking each other for a straight 20 minutes. So it's been, and they're doing it like appropriately. There's that line you have to walk, and I think these guys have done extremely well at walking that line of making it a fun, entertaining season for Immortal, and also, not being toxic and being jerks. So I really enjoyed that.
It's a very fair point. They do really have good banter going back and forth, but at the end of the day, it does become all love for them. So it's good because you have that heat behind those games, but at the same time, when all said and done, when the dust clears from the battlefield, they're all going to come out of the other end just fine, win or lose. Anthony, my friend, Immortal moments, what you got?
Well, I certainly won't take yours because you definitely have one that kind of stands out, and I really enjoyed being along for the ride on it.
I wasn't even know what you're talking about. Continue, yes.
But anyway, Pua, obviously. But no, I think my favorite, that it's not so much one moment, but it's a team, and I think it's something that'll matter for playoffs. It's just like what Fenix was saying, what KingFsher was saying. Seismic Shockwaves, and the fact that they actually use strategies in the late game, and they try to make a play happen, and they're not afraid to go for a backdoor, go for a red herring split push, utilize Titans, utilize the map. All those things are how you win big moment games, and we don't get a lot of that, and not just amateur leagues, but in SDL's history. Normally, especially if we want to talk about finals, I know those are a bit far out, but normally they're kind of just barn burning or like absolute obliterations of teams, and they don't go that long, they don't fulfill the series, and it's kind of anticlimactic. And I don't think Seismic Shockwaves are a team where that will happen, because whether they're ahead or behind, they're constantly thinking, just like Wild Inferno, how can we win from the position we're in right this second? Not how can we win in 10 minutes? Can we win right now? Because there's something we can do. And I think that's a mindset that could take them far.
Really well put there. And yeah, we've seen some of that wily play. Some of those moves, attempted backdoors, failed backdoors, in fact, as well, we've seen. But it makes for some incredibly intense, fast-paced action, and hopefully we're going to just see a little bit more of that come these playoffs. But that being said here, guys, enough stress. Let's guess. I've got the bracket pulled up here. As per usual, I'm going to list off these matchups. I'm going to count you down from 3, and simultaneously, we're all going to give our thoughts. If there's dissenting opinions, we're going to talk it out. So, starting off here, Wild Inferno versus Flourish, the 1st seed versus the 8th seed. 3, 2, 1.
Wild Inferno.
Wild Inferno.
All right, Fenix. All right, Fenix. You're dramatic.
There's a world where Flourish can make it a fight, and if Wild Inferno have, at any point, like Fenix said, they stop taking it serious for 1 second, they're probably chalked, and Flourish will take advantage. But I think Wild Inferno has been a team that's mindset is too strong for that.
Understandable, honestly. We're just going to move it right along because no dissent there, but Flourish, it's up to you guys to prove us wrong, and honestly, wouldn't even mind seeing it. Always love to see a good upset, but Wild Inferno, got to make sure you keep your hands on the steering wheel. No driving with your knees, because then the car might just swerve. Alrighty, continuing on. This is going to be the interesting matchup, I think. Seismic Shockwaves versus the Stormcallers. 4th seed versus 5th seed here. 3, 2, 1.
Shockwaves.
Wow.
Simultaneous now. All
That's
right, I'm going to
surprising.
call my friend Fisher here.
There you go,
He's
Fenix.
representative here. Why do we think Shockwaves take it over Stormcallers?
I think for me, it's just consistency. I mean, all season long, Shockwaves have looked like a good team. They've played strong. We really haven't seen too many bad performances from that team. And you just like having that, especially when you're going into playoffs, when teams are going to be switching stuff up. Just kind of having that good base and having a season where it's been really productive, I think it makes it really, really hard to kind of root against that team.
I'd add, too, that Stormcallers, they went through Brexit. They don't have printers running their jungle. And
To go through Brexit, indeed.
that's going to be something that
Oh,
they
no.
didn't have the whole season to adjust to. And the Shockwaves are one of the more synchronous teams, and they like I said, they've got their strategies. I think it's going to be a tough battle. I think it's going to come down to the mid lane. I think watch the mid lane in that set, and that's where it gets decided.
I mean, to be fair, though, Stormcallers are literally now all facts, no printer. So who knows? Maybe they'll come up with
Nice.
the stats they need for success, but only time will tell. Moving it right along.
Ooh,
Eclipse.
Sunbreaker's lore. Oh boy.
Oh, wait, hold on. Oh, sorry, not even Eclipse. Yeah, next one is going to be Sunbreakers versus Dark Omen, in fact. And there's the Dynasty.
Yeah.
Riding on the backs of this one here. Sunbreaker is going to be the 2 seed versus Dark Omen 7 seed. And we spent so much time talking about how powerful Dark Omen is, but yet they're still lagging a little bit near the bottom. So, interested to hear y'all's thoughts. 3, 2, 1.
Dark Omen.
Dark Omen.
Sunbreakers.
Ooh, we finally
This
Sorry.
have
is
dissenting.
interesting. Okay, Fenix, I could see, was like pulling back. He was stressed out. He was dang near pulling his hair out. He's about to turn his neck into 180 once again and crack it off. But Fenix, Sunbreakers is your pick. Why are we going with
Yeah.
2nd seed instead of 7th seed?
These guys are just sucking TMJ off. That's all it is.
Carry on. Explain, sir.
Sunbreakers. I think that Kualameng, I saw him during the 3rd week or 4th week say, we haven't even played yet. He's like, we got skipped on 2 weeks. And then he came out and they won that game 2-0 and then went 2-0 again, then went 2-0 again. It was something ridiculous where they just went bam, 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 and just ended 3 people's lives. And so it's hard for me to bet against a team that has been together the entire season. Sunbreakers has, as you guys were talking about, Seismic Shockwaves has been together the entire season. But now Stormcallers, lacking printers, getting rat.
Yeah, and Dark Omen had a rough start.
Dark Omen did have a really rough start with a switch of captainship and then picking up physics as Deelo has expanded upon us earlier in this death segment. I want to vote for Dark Omen. That's the thing, is because I like that team a lot. But I want to see Sunbreakers. I kind of have to root for the Dynasty, right? Let's do it again. Let's run it back.
Somebody
There's that part, but also I do like their roster in general. I think that Kualameng has put together a pretty good team here, and they're 2nd seed for a reason. They're not 2nd seed because they got forfeited on a lot of times.
Yeah.
They are 2nd seed because they're up there a Wild Inferno. They're a pretty good team.
reminds me of Immortal Sunbreakers from last season.
Yeah.
Because they were 1st seed, they were undefeated. They still caught a lot of doubt just because of how their schedule had lined up, and
Yeah.
they pulled it out. So
That might just be part of the curse of the Sunbreakers, and they're looking to break it and looking to break this playoffs bracket wide open. It's interesting because I have to agree, despite skating up to 2nd seed, I feel like they've skated under the radar a little bit, and they're being a bit slept on. So Dark Omen's got to make sure that they're staying a bit woke. Otherwise, they might just get knocked out 1st round here. Alrighty, guys. Let's talk about the last matchup we have here. It's going to be Eclipse versus the Kingslayers. 3, 2, 1.
Kingslayers.
Kingslayers.
Unanimous here.
I'm
gonna
kind of.
have my
I'm
friend
looking for
Richard-
the. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm looking for the unofficial rematch between Kingslayers and Dark Omen.
Oh, true.
Because we
Okay,
never
I see
did
you.
get
I like
that. We never got that set, and that would have been a fantastic set last season. So, with a lot of similar faces, I'm really looking for Dark Omen Kingslayers.
That would be a really good match for the ages here. Hopefully, gonna see that come to fruition. Because yeah, you're right. Zarsith, we got Thokman on Dark Omen, Physics on Dark Omen as well. Ooh, Tasha, this is gonna be interesting to see here. Okay, I see the vision, Anthony. I like it. Fisher, as a representative for the team here, since we're all in unanimous agreement, Kingslayers. Why?
Well, I mean, first off, I just like upsets. I think they're objectively more fun to watch, and they are the lower seed. But I think beyond that, it's really hard to kind of go against Tatri and Zarxith in the playoffs. Two players that looked really, really good last year, especially during this time stretch, kind of in crunch time. They really came alive, helped their team out a ton. And I don't think Eclipse is a bad team at all. They can certainly still take it. But the fact that Kingslayers have already beaten this team as well this season, I think there's just a lot adding up there that really kind of makes it hard to go against that 6 seed.
Worth noting, too, that we talked about Tatri being a return finalist. Tatri and Zarxith made it to the finals together on 2 different teams in 2 different leagues last season.
Mm-hmm.
Which is...
Got the chemistry.
Like, you talk about... Tatri is one thing, but both of them doing that together is crazy.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely going to come in clutch for them. Fisher, are you good, bro? Do you need a break?
I hate it here.
Dude, I took a bite of one thing.
Yeah, I know. I was gonna let it rock, but
I heard the plate. I heard the plate like clatter to the ground.
Phoenix, tell the audience what you're eating right now, bro.
I'm just eating like a little kid's plate, basically, is what it is. Like, it's got oranges.
Kind of fire, actually. Oh wait, so that's
that's what I was cooking. Yeah,
that was fire, dude.
Yeah.
And hopefully we're gonna see Immortal cooking to the same extent there with these recipes, all that stuff gonna be going on here. But that being said, that's been the Immortal part of this desk. We're gonna be right back in just a moment with the Godlike segment, so don't you go anywhere. We got more content for you in just a moment.
Hello, and I hope you are enjoying so far watching me be tortured. I'm kidding. But I hope you're enjoying the discussion so far for Immortal and Godlike for the Smite Draft League playoffs. Just a reminder to make sure you're in discord.gg/STL because we've got fundraising opportunities and more, not to mention the playoff streams right around the corner, and we hope to see you there.
Hello and welcome back to the Upper Division Playoff Panel. Once again, I'm Deelo, joined here by the casters. Click here. We got our veterans, AnthonyMalum on the scene, Fenix on the scene, can't see Fisher, now he's back. There is KingFsher as well joining us. Thanks again, gentlemen, for being here. Godlike talk. Let's get right on into it. It's the cream of the crop, the height of the mountain, the peak of SDL playmanship. So, let's talk about it. Godlike this season. Been a bit turbulent. It's been a bit rocky sometimes due to the nature of these player schedules. Many games could not be arranged at points. And there's not as much scrim time as you see in those other divisions. Good and bad, what are the consequences come a playoff run when both your team and your opponents have had a bit of a sporadic season as far as playtime?
I mean, what's good for Godlike is while yes, their scrim time's limited, they're all really familiar with each other for the most part. Most players at that echelon of skill, you can basically name an IGN and they'll know how good or how bad that player is, obviously subjectively, but they're, and I would even go so far as I mentioned this to you guys kind of off desk, but our Godlike in particular has been an interesting topic of discussion among the players because there's a lot of new faces to the upper division who kind of earned their way there from play within our league, which tends to be kind of a rare thing. In these leagues, most of the time, the upper divisions are truly just drag and drop GM lists, as opposed to people who kind of earned their way up in competitive. And I think this season is showing that there is a place for players like that. I mean, obviously, it's not going to be every single person can just grind out middle tier competitive and all of a sudden compete with, top 25 players, but they can. And I think that's the big thing. And because they're all used to each other, while they don't scrim, I look at teams from last season, like when we had teams like Dark Omen and Eclipse, who were both basically SCC teams who were working together. They play with each other enough that it's not that big of an issue.
Very fair points there. KingFsher, anything to add there as far as just what are the downsides and also the upsides when you have a bit less play time underneath your belt for these Godlike players?
I can't really imagine there's many upsides to not playing as much as far as like kind of team chemistry and strategy goes, but I think kind of like Anthony said, this is a stage where a lot of these players, they know each other, they played with each other, against each other, whatever, in rank, casual, pretty much anything in the game. So we always talk about chemistry a lot in this league, and pretty much everything. I think it's always pretty important and can oftentimes kind of take over skill in terms of where teams are able to be placed. But with a league like this, with this skill level, these guys, they know Smite, they know what they're doing. It doesn't matter what team they're on, they're still going to come together, they're going to know what to do. So I don't think it's as important as in the other leagues, but still, I think you're really going to see the teams that have spent more time together, that have scrimmed more, are going to find a lot more success.
Definitely would agree with that. I will say, the one thing that comes to mind for me at the very least when I think of what can maybe work out when you have less of those hours underneath your belt as a team is that some of those more out-of-pocket picks can be a bit more of a curveball that maybe if your team doesn't have that experience, that synergy built yet, they're not quite sure how to deal with those wily answers. Maybe the Strat Jormungandr supports that build full damage. How do you deal with that? We don't even know how to deal with a regular team comp because we haven't gotten that playtime yet. So there's a bit of potential for some out-of-depth picks there that might just unstabilize some of these resident top threat players. But to kind of piggyback a little bit off what Anthony mentioned earlier, the idea that some of these players, there's a bit of doubt over casting their performances and just their placements in general in this godlike division. So in the same way that some players waterfall into unstoppable were met with cries of disbelief from the community, there have been the same things on this upper side. Two that come to my mind as far as some players that have kind of received a bit of that criticism, a bit of that doubt, are Immortal champion, Remarkable Wolf, and the Immortal runner-up, Eva Was Taken. Fenix, I'm going to start with you on this one. How do we think they performed in face of that pressure?
Eclipse. They are second seed, and that is our friend Remarkable Wolf, correct?
That is our friend Remarkable Wolf.
So it says it works out. They got a pretty good matchup against Stormcallers, and that's probably in kind of their favor. But keep in mind that Teddy522, who has been one of all four of our favorite players, is not going to be active on the roster for the playoffs and for the finals here, or if they can make it to the finals. For the playoffs in general, Teddy's not here. So the team loses, in my opinion, a good amount of value just based on the fact that the previous champion, Teddy, will not be in the area. Rat Milk's not here to compete against Teddy either. So there's going to be a new big jungle in town in Godlike. There's a lot of different opportunities for that. Without having Teddy, Eclipse kind of loses almost, I think, a quarter of the value. But we can look towards our friends on Flourish, which is where Eba is right now. That team, another Flourish team that by like the letters, same as Immortal, by their names, their IGNs alone, I say OP team.
Yeah.
Extremely good team. I put them as possibly winning this entire thing in the beginning of the season. Like, I'm not going to stray away from that because with names like Eva Was Taken, and then you have Ostrich as the captain on that team, and then he was able to create a foundation with the rest of the picks as well. It was like a no-brainer. I'm just going to pick Flourish here. But Eva Was Taken, and the rest of that team has been struggling. Whether it's Immortal or Godlike, I think that both of those players deserve to be here, in all honesty, especially with how this season ended up being. I think that there were some cries, as you said, in Immortal, like Zarksith, why are they here? TMJ, why are they here? That kind of thing. We got some of those calls in Immortal. I think these guys have gotten some calls of why are they in Godlike, but at the end of the day, Eclipse have shown very well where they belong. And I think that Eva Was Taken has still proven to be one of the best junglers in Godlike, if not top 3.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a bit of a follow-up there in spirit of all of that. I'm going to toss this one to my friend KingFsher. When it's, in this case, an individual player receiving those doubts, rather than maybe the entire team in its entirety, is it best to let that energy, that hater energy, fuel you? Or do you need to kind of reel yourself in as an individual part of the machine and remain consistent with the team's energy? What's the right balance there as far as what attitude you approach these games with, knowing that you're being slept on a little bit?
Is that one still in regards to a Flourish with Eva?
It's in regards to any player that we think is maybe just being cast a little bit of doubt on as far as their placement in Godlike, and maybe getting some side-eye from other players.
I think it's probably a little bit of a balancing beam, because obviously when somebody says something like that as a player, you immediately want to prove them wrong. You want to show that you belong, and that can really, I think, be kind of dangerous because maybe you try making risky plays that you think you're going to pop off and you just really don't. And then that kind of gets in your head and you play even worse, and you can sort of spiral. It's really hard to ignore that kind of stuff. But I think for most of these players, if they are feeling like that, it's going to be most important to kind of just buckle down, do your thing. As long as your team's winning, you're winning. And I think that's really the most important thing that can happen. And then just kind of off of that, you'll know that you belong in Godlike. And I don't think, for the record, I don't think there's a single player in this division that shouldn't be here.
Very valid points there. Appreciate that, my mans. Alrighty, let's talk a bit more specific about teams in general. Maybe zoom out a little bit from the players and talk about the units as a whole. Kingslayers. They've had a very interesting journey here in Season 3, and they didn't even have a complete team roster for multiple weeks. And after picking up Emoji Daddy, they succeeded to great effect with incredibly out-of-pocket team comps that still somehow managed to stomp the competition. I would like you guys to talk to me about the mentality that maybe these players are likely approaching playoffs with after such an impressive comeback tour. Anthony, I'm going to start with you.
I feel like the mentality of Kingslayers is a mentality of we all independently think that we have some of the best mechanics. We all feel like we're proven players because many players on Kingslayers they're spread not just between leagues but up to SCC. They compete in SOC, Kaizo casts SCC. The knowledge base, the mechanical skill, it's all spread and it's all there. And one thing that sticks out to me majorly so when it comes to Kingslayers is that they're kind of ragtag, but they're ragtag in the way of like the Guardians of the Galaxy might be considered ragtag.
Mm-hmm.
Like just because they're pulled together and they weren't originally working together, the strength is still undeniable. And for me, I think they're one of the more standout teams because they have so many interesting routes they can play, and they're one of the teams that goes through games the fastest, which is usually telling of a strong mindset as a team and strong comms, because you go in kind of like Wild Inferno and Immortal. They go in and they know exactly their win conditions, and every time they hit a win condition, they take the advantage of it, and then they hit their next win condition, and they move on. We saw it a few times, notably in games where Kaizo would play Athena or Ares, where we'd see them diving Fenix at like 17 minutes because they're setting up a fire giant on the other side of the map, and they get that fire giant, and then they get the beacons, and then they get another fire giant, then they push up with the Titans, and they end the game at 22 minutes, and the other team's like, the hell just happened? And I feel like that is such a significant strength for them.
Yeah, very fair there, I think. It's interesting to see just how some teams can overcome such great adversity and then make that, kind of weave that to be their identity in this case. You saw at that post-game interview where after defeating their opponents with a 5 physical comp, they just came in with, they had the clappers, Kaizo was feeling good, Emoji Daddy was
Kaizo was ready to strip down and celebrate.
Yeah, I mean, what's the point of, coming and making such a big statement if you're not going to rest on your laurels a little bit there? So, but at the same time, with that, pride cometh before the fall. So you got to make sure that while you're at the same time patting yourself on the back, you're watching your back to make sure that someone doesn't sneak up on you, bop you on the head, and then there goes your playoffs run. But that's the Kingslayers to talk about here. Let's go a bit more broad in general. Let's get even further zoomed out, talk about the meta and the state of the game that we're in currently with the season of Celebration. I asked a similar question to the lower division panel here, but I'm curious for your guys' thoughts on the high side of the league. When we have a curveball like recipes being thrown into the mix so soon before playoffs, how do you guys think the top players handle new elements of the game like that in comparison to maybe the lower sides? Fenix, I'd like to start with you.
The best, I would say. Some of these people will cook up some weird things, not to be ironic about recipes. So we'll see some like Ratataskers mid and stuff like that. But you can expect that Godlike, if there's any division that's going to use these recipes and the changes to Osiris and the changes to any ADC even, there were a couple changes that were done. Marticarus being nerfed and so many things that were done in the last patch and will be done in the bonus patch here in a couple of days. It's you have to look at people like Emoji Daddy. You have to look at people like we just said it, Kaizo as well, who actually is funny enough as a caster, but also has played a lot of Athena. Athena, for me right now, as a high level player, has been like a win or lose factor. And so if you have an Athena player on your team and they currently know the meta with recipes, whether they're going to go Sturdy Stew or go Bountiful Bow, which are two very different items, but can play in two very different styles, Kaizo can meet probably both of those styles and play it to efficiency that I would even say an Immortal or a Divine level player could not. Maybe Tatri might be able to play at the level of Kaizo on Athena, considering Tatri is a Athena main. Yeah. But just to say all this is to basically answer your question directly and say Godlike should, and in my opinion, will play this meta out of all the divisions the best.
There's always, most of our leagues, we always like to think, especially as casters, are like kind of similar in skill level. You know, you're still going to see those pop-off plays in Divine, in Unstoppable, where it feels like it could have been pulled straight out of Godlike in a team fight or something. I think just knowing the game, knowing the builds is one area where Godlike is really kind of separated from the others. And that's not to say like players in Immortal, players in Divine don't know what they're doing, but everybody at that level, they're high ranked, they've been playing the game for a while. Whenever something happens, like we see the recipes, a whole new item, I don't know how game breaking it's going to be, but it's a new way to play. It starts off from minute 0, especially a lot of the god changes we saw. These people know how to play all, 124, 125 gods in the game. They know what every single item
Smite.
does. They know when to build it. I do, once in a while. That number trips me up every time. I think it might be at like 127. I honestly could not tell you.
A lot of gods.
But yeah, but they know how to play every one of them. So when there is a change, when there is something new that's introduced, they're going to know how to utilize that. Way before, yeah, now who's laughing?
Yeah, bro, you good now? What's up with you now? Why are me the 2LC's holding it down right now? Because we're stone cold statues. You have something to say to the public here, Anthony?
No, I'll let Fisher survive this one.
Go ahead, Fisher.
I was just about winding down my point, but yeah, I think because they have so much more experience with the game, with all the different metas, they're just gonna adapt a lot quicker than anyone else, and I think that kind of inherently goes for all the Godlike.
Makes sense. A lot more min-maxing going to be going on there. So compared to Unstoppable, where they might kind of breeze aside. It's kind of like what we saw when the Stygian Beacon was first introduced and the Titan Clash. A lot of times you just see kind of ignored. Those Titans would just kind of play Rock'em Sock'em robots on their own and the rest of the team would play their own game. But here, this is a bit more of an active element. It kind of forces you to pay attention to it. If you're not building up those recipes and actively paying attention to it, you're potentially losing out on a Golden Bow. And Golden Bow is Golden Bow. What a scary prospect. So you really can't ignore this feature. So I'm looking forward to seeing how these Godlike players decide to optimize it. And if they decide to optimize it, how that impacts their play as a team. But carrying along, we got a penultimate question here. In the Godlike division, I feel like last season we could all agree that a lot of our eyes were on that jungle role, the legendary battle between Teddy, 522, and then Rat Milk, Anthony's love child. What do we think, as far as this season, is the overarching role to look at across the teams? Has it changed? Are our eyes somewhere different? Anthony, I'm going to start with you.
I mean, in any esport that it revolves around a MOBA, jungle is always the role you have to pay attention to, because the higher and higher you get in terms of skill, the more jungle holds everything together and everything revolves around the jungle. You could see it in, like I said, in literally any MOBA. And in Smite, because jungles are so high impact, because you either are picking that hyper carry or you're picking that utility setup Humbot store who can also one-hit somebody. I genuinely think that the higher up in skill you get, there's a reason that we remember the players of the screams and the adaptings. There's a reason that they really engrave in a brain. Because, True. You know, when the big games are on the line, they drop the 15 kills on a Fenrir, and you're like, oh my god, I forgot that character existed. And there's always the room for ADCs. You can't deny them, because especially in metas where they have one-shot potential, they can, you know, they sit in backline and they left-click. That's our thing, and it works for a reason. But again, the higher you get, there's just answers for these things. But it's hard to find answers for good junglers. You kind of have to learn to live with it. And like you said, we saw it last season, not just Teddy and Rat Milk, but Tegveer and Rat Milk and Sam and Sam at some points, Emoticon Father, because they were switching around jungle. Swagga,
Bro.
who was crazy in the jungle. There's a million examples of people who have played jungle even for a game to sub in people who played it consistently, who at that level were game changers. I mean, we saw players switch to tier support from ADC and still make things work. Players like Happen go from support to jungle for one game and not do terrible because they were playing the Hydra's Jingwei. There's so many different layers to Godlike that can make those sets so fascinating.
Very fair point there. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. I do agree that jungle just naturally, your mind kind of roves to it because they're the ones that are roving around. They make the action happen. Things tend to stagnate if you don't introduce that rotating element that is going to be someone who's just trying to make as much chaos happen for the opposing team as possible. So looking forward to seeing some of the plays cooked up here by Eba, by, your other jungle players that I can't really remember on Godlike, but it's going to be interesting no matter what. But that being said, before we get into these predictions here, I'm going to talk about some moments here. So, Godlike, highlights, best moments that come to mind. KingFsher, man, I'm going to start with you.
Probably the one division this year where I think we talked about it on Immortal. I got a bad memory, but there's still like one moment from Godlike that does stand out. I think it was covered earlier. A lot of people's favorite probably. But that interview with Kingslayers, with Emoji Daddy and Kaizo, was about some of the funniest 5 minutes of my life. I don't even think the whole thing properly made it into the VOD, but just seeing, and especially after that roster had so many challenges early in the season with rosters, with not being able to make games, with I think losing a game or two, just seeing them, that upbeat, that happy, that kind of together, I think really just speaks to that team. And probably not unique to them, but across all our divisions, no matter how they're performing, there's always going to be one team that's getting along really well and that you think has a lot of momentum going into playoffs. And for me, that interview just really showed off how kind of more together that team was than any of us thought they were.
Very valid points there. Fenix, man, I'm moving on to you.
Favorite moment in Godlike just don't line up for me, but as someone who has had to kind of mangle together this season of Godlike, but I would say that if I were to name one, it's funny enough that it's with Kingslayers as well. I really enjoyed with the brokenness that team was in the beginning part of the season, because week 1 that team had 3 players on it, and then a trade occurred. It was a crazy situation for Kingslayers, and I was beyond gleeful to get 5 members on that team and then have them start winning games. You should see me in their chat, just being so excited for them. And I've really enjoyed rooting for the underdogs, which were the Kingslayers this entire season, whether they win or not in the playoffs. It's been a joy to be a part of what they have become after the tribulations that they had in week 2.
Now, so for you, it's not just one moment, it's the entire journey that Kingslayers have taken.
Yeah.
A lot of love here for the Kingslayers, so hopefully they make good use of it when it comes to this first round. Anthony, my man, what you got?
I mean, mine has to be pretty obvious and easy. It has to be the Eba game of the 30 kills in the L.
Oh, yeah.
The kill record
bro.
for SDL. One of the craziest games I've ever cast. One of the few times I almost lost my voice in a cast, which is crazy considering, the length of some I've been in and such. But one of the craziest games I've ever watched. Crazy set, too. People forgot how good that game 1 was. And really, that game was a testament to me of the ability of Swagga, significantly so. And there was layers to that set, and there was beef in that set we knew of too, which made it even more interesting. And I think that game was also a testament to what everybody says about Eba as a player, which is he plays too selfish sometimes. And that game was an example of both how it works and how it fails. Because when Eba died, his team lost. But Eba gets 30 kills, his team has opportunities. And I think the answer to Flourish's playoff run lies simply in making the most of the opportunities Eba's going to create for you. Because he can do it. He's going to get kills instead of the plays. How do you capitalize on it? If Flourish finds that, they'll get it. But it all stems from such a significant start during week 1.
It's also worth saying that moment in time kind of set course for the Eba curse of Penta into L. True combination.
Pele Penta into L.
Pele Penta, you're right. Pele Penta into L.
with power in the game.
Yeah, Eba's #1 fan, in fact, is such a big fan of Eba, following directly in his footsteps. You gotta admire the dedication from Pua in Immortal, because my gosh, he really followed that game plan to a T. So hopefully, if you see moments like that, the amazing pop-offs, you collect yourself. You realize this is our moment for action. We can still mess this up. Don't let it happen a second time. History cannot repeat itself or flourish if they want to prove the doubters wrong, make that finals run that Eba was unfortunately denied the victory from in Season 2. But that being said, enough stress. Let's guess, guys. Godlike brackets coming up to you in just a second. Same as usual, I'm going to count you down from 3 after reading out the bracket matchups. You're going to tell me your picks, and we're going to discuss why. So, starting off here, first seed versus the 8th. Sunbreakers at the top here, where they belong, if you're asking anyone from Season 2, versus Wild Inferno. 3, 2, 1.
Sunbreakers.
It's unanimous.
I was muted. Sunbreakers.
I'm gonna come out and say it right away.
How dare you do that? But Fenix,
talk
to me.
I got something to say right away.
Oh, okay. Go
this
ahead.
is what I've been waiting for. Sandman Sam is out for blood. My man has been impacted by, saying it respectfully, we're going to say circumstances of the Godlike division. My man has been impacted more than any player 2 seasons in a row leading up to this. And if you ask him, he will not be shy that he feels like his finals were ripped away multiple times. And especially Season 1, there's some gripes to be had there. And Sandman Sam is in possibly the best position, kind of, because last season was great, but I just cannot see a world where Sandman Sam will not do everything possible to win that set to get his SDL finals, because my man has been trying harder than anyone.
Valid reasoning there. Phoenix, I was going to cap it off with you real quick. Sunbreakers, as far as beyond the Sandman Sam aspect of it all, why do we think Sunbreakers got this?
Sunbreakers by far were the most active team out of the entirety of Godlike. They played every single game, had no makeup games to make up at the end of the season. So that just is a testament to not only their captainship, but also just their roster in general. It means they're dedicated not only to the SDL. I know some of these guys play in other leagues, other ISL leagues, so I expect them to show up and probably run it down in this first round, I would say. Wild Inferno, even though a team that has presented themselves quite well in some of these matchups, have not done as well as Sunbreakers. So for me, it was just an easy say towards the Sunbreakers.
Yeah, it's going to be a difficult run back for Digits.
Yeah.
Gonna have to see if they prove us right or wrong on that one. But you heard it first there. Casters say unanimously Sunbreakers take round 1. Second matchup here, 4th versus 5th seed. Always the interesting one if you ask this guy here. But we have Fenix leaving the parties. So emphatic of a statement, he decides he needs to dip. Welcome back, Fenix, to the lobby. We're just about to talk here about Seismic Shockwaves, the 4th seed, versus Dark Omen, 5th seed. 3, 2, 1.
Shockwaves.
Dark Omen?
God.
Just
Dark
like-
Omen?
Just hang me out to dry like that? Come
I'm a
on.
bit hesitant on this one here. So, Shockwaves was no hesitation there for KingFsher. The rest were a bit on the fence. KingFsher, try to convince them why the Shockwaves got this.
I'm so 50-50.
I mean, to be fair, I did have this in my notes, as I think this is going to be one of the closest round 1 games of the entire league, not just Godlike.
Yeah.
Because, like they said, they both voted for Dark Omen. Dark Omen's a good team. I mean, there's Power, Snoozism, Swagga, all names that like anybody that's seen the SDL before knows.
Yeah.
But I don't know, just looking at that Shockwaves team, they're ranked 4th for a reason. I'm a huge Stylus fan. I think Aggressing has been having a really, really nice season. And same, Izeven, I think, has been one of the most impressive mid laners. And mid and solo, for me, I was going to talk earlier when Anthony was talking about jungle, are some of the most impactful roles, I think, this season, with all the fighting around mid and the beacon changes. So seeing them on Shockwaves really makes me want to go for that team, because I think they have what it takes to get past that round 1.
Snoozism is a playoff monster, though.
He is. Can't
That's
sleep
true.
on snooze. So it's going to be interesting to see this. So in that case, Anthony, let's toss it to you then. Why do we think Dark Omen's going to take it over the Shockwaves?
I think that Swagga is somebody who... Fenix mentioned it. Fenix said that Eba is a top 3 jungle. Swagga beat Eba, who had 30 kills and a penta
Yeah.
in one game.
Quite the
And
calling
Swagga
card.
beat him handily, including solo kills in an kind of an unfavorable matchup, depending on cooldowns and such, of course. And that's before you talk about, like I said, Snoozism, who's just a demon in playoffs. Last season, we all the time we talk about Teddy, and Teddy got MVP, but Snoozism, and anyone who was in that call making the vote for MVP of Godlike knows Snoozism was literally that close to being the MVP because Snoozism carried his team just as much as Teddy did. They were an unstoppable combination. So for me, Fenix mentioned that Teddy's not around for Eclipse. And we talked about Digits not having a hard time running it back. Sandman Sam's got a new team. Snoozism and Swagga both have talent and are together. And I just feel like Snoozism being as good as he is, playoff demon, having a jungle who's that sturdy, they can make a very far run.
Gonna have to see which one prevails there, but I think there's definitely great arguments for either side here. I wouldn't be mad to see either one of these teams advancing on to round 2. But let's advance on to bracket 3 here. Eclipse versus Stormcallers here. 3, 2, 1.
Stormcallers.
Eclipse.
Okay, Fisher, odd man out once again. We're going to start this time with the opposition here. So, Fenix, talk to me here. Why your pick?
Yeah, I think there's always a thing to say about Stormcallers. It's just that I haven't been able to see them play as much this season as I have Eclipse, and I'm a big fan of Remarkable Wolf. And even though people kind of doubted him, he actually drafted quite a good team together here.
Yeah, man.
Including making a pretty good trade later in the season, getting rid of trading over Kaizo to Kingslayers during the time that they were having that big issue, and picking up Lies of Eden, who, letter to myself, also known as, has presented pretty well in support. Zombie Billy Mays still strong in solo, and then you have Remarkable Wolf and ADC. The only question mark I have for Eclipse is going to be jungle. I told you, it loses a quarter of your team once you lose champion, literally champion, Teddy 522. That was the name of Eclipse that I would say, oh, well, they have Teddy there, so they're gonna go to finals probably. But with him going on to a little trip that he's doing on Europe and is kind of off the grid for a little bit here, funny enough, I'll get a little background noise about what Teddy's up to. He's been very proud to talk about it. Going on his little vacation. I think that Eclipse are going to struggle a little bit, but I still have trust, and I got to vote for my boy, Remarkable Wolf, so gotta go.
I'm on a similar page as you. My big caveat is, and I say this knowing that he's somebody who watches more SDL content than most people, Remarkable Wolf, so I feel like this is going to go strike a chord. So, Remarkable Wolf is somebody who wants to be a playmaker very badly, and every ADC wants to be a playmaker. It is literally how the role is designed. You want to be the hero, you want to be the playmaker. I think the moment that Remarkable Wolf becomes the damage dealer and becomes the true attack damage carry and the hunter, as opposed to trying to get that game-winning penta, I think as soon as that clicks, I think he could easily be in competition to be a true mainstay godlike player and really no longer be a question mark like we talked about at the beginning of this division's talk. And I with what Fenix said, if your question mark is your jungle and you've got to rely on everybody to pull even weight, you're gonna need the ADC role to do just that. Just give consistent damage.
Valid. And Fisher, we're gonna arrive now to you, my friend. Stormcallers is what I heard from your lips, and honestly, love to hear it. That team has got some fun people on it and some fun picks alongside it. Why do we say the 7th seed prevails?
Well, I do have to caveat and say that if Teddy was still on Eclipse, I think I would have gone with Eclipse. But I don't know if we've seen another jungler other than Teddy on that team, and certainly not one that would have as much success. And when you look at that Stormcallers team, they have Lycon, who's a great jungler, and they have Dragoon, one of the few ADCs in Godlike that I'm pretty confident could go up against Remarkable Wolf time after time after time. Some of the other ones are maybe just inconsistent or not as well known to me, but that's sure to be a big player there for Eclipse. And looking at that Stormcallers roster, I think they just have good players through and through. I know they have good chemistry. Most of these fellows have been along in the SDL since Season 1, I think. And yeah, just also, Their IGN's name is Storm. They're the Storm Callers.
Yes!
How are you gonna go against that? Yeah, no
Dude,
faith.
Fair.
Thematic consistency wins the day in any time in my book. I've seen Storm pull out a Thor mid, and they won the game. They have some fun tricks up their sleeve, and sometimes when their back's against the wall, that's when you want to pull it out. That's when you decide, we're going for broke or we're going home. So I like that attitude of them. Like we said, though, for the Immortal talk, you got to make sure you're balancing that amount of fun you can have. And I think they got a good bead. They have the needle set on what's a bit too far before you kind of start to edge into no man's land with your out-of-pocket picks. So I'm rooting for Stormcallers here, even though I do love the storyline for Remarkable Wolf. I'm looking forward to seeing how he plays out as well. I wouldn't be upset with either one of these teams winning. It's going to be a fun matchup to watch, certainly. But last matchup we arrive at here, guys. Going to be an interesting one to talk about. It's Kingslayers versus Flourish, the 3rd versus 6th seed. We spent a lot of time during this panel discussing both teams respectively. So let's see where our opinions lie on who takes it. Anthony's deep in thought. Fenix has got his head in his hands. Let's talk about it. 3, 2, 1.
Kingslayers.
Unanimous decision here for the Kingslayers. And a representative I'm going to elect for this one. Anthony, talk it out. Why did the Kingslayers take this one?
Kingslayers take this because of this. What I talked about could be a strength of Flourish. I said they need to figure out how to play around the idea that Eva is a hard carry, and they can play around what Eva creates. The Kingslayers are too smart of a team to fall into that trap. If Eva's not going to get 30 kills, because if Eva gets 10 kills, the Kingslayers are just going to walk away and do something else. They're not going to fall into that. And if they do decide, okay, let's fight then, they're also going to have 30 kills. It's not going to be the same kind of matchup that we saw where Dark Omen, while they got the better of Flourish, they reacted. Kingslayers would see it start to happen, or if like a pentakill happened out of nowhere, they'd be like, all right, new game plan. Ignore Pele and or kill Pele, win game. And I think the adaptability of Kingslayers will outweigh the potential ceiling of Flourish.
Very fair point. And Fenix, I'm going to toss one to you just because that's your baby right there, my friend. Can't let you not talk about your own child. Kingslayers, you've raised them since they were a swaddling infant. Why do we think they take this one?
I think it's straight up. Emoji is almost unstoppable. The morale of that team right now is out of the wazoo. We saw it on the camera, the favorite moment of KingFsher when they were interviewed by Sun. What can you decline about Kingslayers and say these guys are not that good? That's not true. They're really good players, and they're also just they generally seem like good human beings too. And so that part of being adaptable with each other and kind of having that camaraderie with each other is going to bring them to that next level that I don't exactly know Flourish have right now, because as an Immortal Flourish have had their issues that we've talked about. I don't know how far off it is for this Godlike Flourish team, but I have kind of kept check-ins with all of the Godlike teams throughout the season, kind of because I had to, but also because Ostrich, I think they had a player drop at one point on that team. They had to pick up another player, so a little bit of situation with that. But I checked in with Flourish throughout the season, and there were some times where Ostrich would respond and say, not so good right now. And then he would say, oh, we're feeling a little bit better. We're feeling a little more positive. And I think Ostrich was very happy to know that all 8 teams were making it into the playoffs this season. And that kind of, they would have made it either way, but they would have made it last seed as 6th right here. So it's a good position for them. They have the chance to come out of this and actually get a win if they want to. It's exactly what Anthony said, though, which is it's going to take a little bit of a lining up and understanding that Eba is going to do what Eba is going to do, which we have seen now for 3 seasons what Eba does. So us as casters may know Eba better than some of these players on Flourish, but you kind of just have to play around Eba, but not fall behind so far behind that you're holding Eba back. So let Eba flow and you'll be good.
Let Eba flow and you'll be good. Let that man spit.
Let him into his avatar state.
Yep.
Yes, let him into the avatar state. He's just got to hit his back real quick, take down the Fire Lord. I mean, even though the Kingslayer is not Wild Inferno. That being said, Fisher, not to leave you behind, my friend, I'm going to have you, I know you standing with the rest of them and saying that Kingslayers take this one. Let's play some devil's advocate, my friend. Keep it interesting. Why do Kingslayers lose this potentially?
Fisher sucks at Devil. I'm just kidding.
I mean, I think I mentioned this when we were talking about a first seed back in Immortal. It could be overconfidence. We've referenced that interview so many times, but we already know Kingslayers are really, they're hyped up, they're feeling good. They're feeling like they're the best team in the division right now, and they're probably in contention for it. So maybe just feeling overconfident and underestimating Flourish is something that can happen. I know we've talked a lot about Flourish, not necessarily the most consistent team in the league, but they have one of the highest ceilings. When everyone on that team is performing, they're scary to go against. So if Flourish is having a really good day, they could maybe not easily upset Kingslayers, but I can definitely see it happening.
They're very much. I like the spirit succession there for Flourish because I think it's the same story for Immortal, and you mentioned it as well. Anthony, so you lean forward anticipation. What you got, my friend?
Well, I had a realization. We talked about beef. We like to add those little storylines. There's a lot of beef in this set because Fenix mentioned that he kind of had to rebuild Kingslayers from the ground up, and there's a lot of players who started out on different teams on Kingslayers, and at the very, very start of Godlike, literally within hours of everybody being put within the Godlike chat, there was pretty significant beef between, I won't name names, but a couple players, maybe duo side, maybe not, on Kingslayers, and a couple players, maybe jungle solo and Flourish, maybe not, where there was a lot of beef there, and a lot of smack talk, and they were supposed to meet early in the season. They ended up not, because we changed how the schedules were going to lay out, and now they're meeting in the playoffs, both at a peak. So I think that alone, that extra bit of emotion being added into the talent, I think makes this. We talked about how good Shockwaves and Dark Omen is. I think this is a really close second-rate matchup for me.
And if you buy SDL Premium Gold, we'll drop the names as well as their IP addresses so you can go and find them and talk to them about it. So make sure to bust out those wallets, take out those credit cards. Mom's not looking anyway. Just grab out her wallet real quick. Exactly, Fisher. Ka-ching, ka-ching. Pay up. We need that sweet, sweet revenue. Anyway, it's going to be interesting to see how it all matches up. It's always good when you have emotions running into it. It's a game, and naturally in any competitive setting, you have some of those tensions running to it. But like with Immortal, I think these players are level-headed enough to recognize they've been in this game long enough to recognize that at the end of the day, it's about the skills that they leave on the battlefield, and I'm sure they're going to be bringing their all to it. But with that being said, that's all we have for you here today at the Upper Division panel for the playoffs. I've been Deelo. We're not going just yet, Fisher. Let me do my jaunt. I've been Deelo. You are joined here by AnthonyMalum, Fenix, and KingFsher himself. Thank you guys very much for joining, and thank you, the viewer at home, for watching. We really appreciate your time. Keep an eye to the sky. We got more content dropping. If you liked what we had here, lower division panel, you had the different casters, different questions, same handsome host. So, hey, feel free to check that one out as well. There's going to be a lot of interesting speculation on the same speculation about the brackets as well. So feel free to mosey on over and check that out. And of course, playoffs week 1 kick off in just a moment here. So make sure you keep an eye to those results for that as well. See if our predictions end up panning out all right, or if we're all bad and we just
Are we doing it? Are we doing it, Deelo? Or are we doing someone start it? Anthony, start it. What is it? Take my heart in the city.
Bro. Oh dear God.
We're saying goodnight in Brooklyn. Okay, yeah, we all gotta do it again. Just send it off.
Final, save it for the final.
Oh my, yeah,
we're gonna drop some new songs there from that man.
Yeah,
Later's got
final.
to release some new content.
You just drop that on us.
Oh, he's got the actual soundboard. He can do that. I forgot. I know you don't. No, fantastic work there. Anyway, thank you for watching. Appreciate your time. You got all of a great rest of your day. Catch more content up on the channel. We'll see you all then.